So, we got the insider pre-release gameplay footage of Motion Twins, the people behind Dead Cells' new roguelike game Windblown, and I really wanted to talk about it, but it's not the most to go off of in terms of a full review since it's only 17 minutes of footage, and I'm not playing it myself, so I can't really get a feel for it. So I thought I'd maybe change pace a little bit in terms of content and make a more loose thought / structured video, just taking a look at the gameplay, breaking it down, and giving general first impressions and my thought on it and all that. So here's that. Immediately out the gates, I am in love with the dashing. There's a device called the pulsor that you get at the start of the game and can use to dash a good chunk of distance near instantaneously, and this functions as a central component of your arsenal. I am a huge proponent of unrestricted movement in games. I love grapple mechanics, I love momentum mechanics, I love gains in occurred speed, etc. And seeing that this speed dash is a central mechanic of the game and you can just spam the mess out of it is awesome. You can dash circles around enemies, use it to dodge, zip around the floating islands, and even between different areas, which looks awesome. I loved it, I love speed if you couldn't tell. It also doesn't look like the dash gives you iframes if I'm seeing this right, unless you time it specifically when an enemy is front attacking you. So while you can spam it in combat, you have to pay attention to your environment and projectiles and all that, since you don't get the safety net of iframes and can easily bonk right into an enemy or projectile if you're not careful. But in exchange, you can integrate the speed and versatility that the endless dashing gives to quickly eliminate enemies and do so in a very satisfying fashion. Kinda similar-ish to Wizard of Legend, actually. I cannot wait to see the 5-minute speedruns of this game and get my hands on that dash myself. Already out the gate, A+. Zooming out, in regards to the art and presentation overall, I'm liking it. It's kinda akin to Hades with the cel-shady look and the isometric 2D camera, a more simplistic but colorful and expressive art style that works really well here. And while it may not have the most incredible reality-defying graphics, there is a good bit of extra personality added on with the little animations the main character has when interacting with things, the liveliness of the environments, enemies, and NPCs, and the little swim the main character does in the healing pool, which was adorable. I think this general additional animation, along with the rich and detailed designs of the world, the characters, and the enemies, adds a lot to the polish and immersion of the game, even with a more simple art style in terms of polygons. But also, what was that high five? The way you pass on gifts, which I'll explain more later, but are basically like item effects, is through the high-fiving thing you do with faded memories, and it's not a big thing at all, but like, it was oddly jarring when I first saw it. I don't know if it's a blank facial expression or the like one move animation, but it was enough for me to make a note to myself, so there you go, quality investigative journaling. Anyway, art was good, and I liked the presentation we got with the nice shots of the floating islands and the camera kind of lagging behind you as you zip across areas, giving you more of a sense of speed. There's some great capture of your surroundings and the environment, which cements the otherworldliness of the areas visually and assists in making the world seem like one that could really be inhabited, along with making you feel like you're moving fast with the lag camera. Also, axolotl main character, plus 10 points. Moving on, I do have some critiques about the story. In the start of the gameplay, it opened up well enough. The mystery about how we got to where we are and the strange device we found with the unknown spirit like being in front of it, pondering what's happening as we explore this unknown, seemingly hostile world with eerie-ish music, discovering more details and pieces like the strange faded memories. A great foundation to work on that initiates a lot of questions for the player and starts to establish the world. But then after we die for the first time, we were kind of just dialogue bombed through a massive chunk of what just happened and is happening, the device, the objective, the conflict, etc. This felt like a game that could use more of a slow, mysterious, pieced-together narrative with the hostile floating islands, the strange pulsar, the faded memories, but once you get to the arc, basically your respawn points, a lot of it is instead verbally described, solving several of the story pieces without giving the player the opportunity to piece it together themselves through exploration. I'm a big fan of unknown explored worlds and being given just enough information to put together theories on how we got to where we are and what the world is and the lore. And the general otherworldliness of Windblown and less descriptive first run-through seemed like the perfect foundation to build this mystery off of if they just presented the story afterwards a little slower and more visually than verbally. Maybe like describe what the arc is, but leave out the details of the pulsar and mystify the vortex. But also, this is a preference thing for me, and there still is story to unfold, particularly with the memories and the origins of the vortex we fight in, so that could very well be developed in a more piece-like fashion later on. Moving into the combat, it looks like you can have 2 weapons and 2 abilities at a time, with the weapons and abilities being standard normalish stuff like knives, guitars, bombs, etc. And not gonna lie, it kind of felt like the fact that each weapon only has one combo, sometimes with a different move if the attack button is held, only being able to hold 2 at once, and the general idea behind dealing damage being get out of the enemy's line of sight or wait for their cooldown, made the combat appear sort of spammy. Like dash dodge, spam Y, dash, spam Y, ability, dash dodge, spam X, etc. This is early gameplay, however, so I suspect the addition of more unique abilities and interactions like the alter attacks and unique enemies with unique attack patterns probably dents up combat options. And aside from that, the combat itself on a basic level seemed pretty solid. Again, I love the Wizard of Legend dash on steroids mechanic and how that integrates into combat. Rewarding thoughtful yet constant dashing and creating unique situations where you want to dash more or dash less with different attack patterns. And that general flow of combat appeared to be very smooth when done right, and doing things right and being rewarded with smooth plows of enemies is always very satisfying and rewarding. There's also passive item effects in the form of gifts and boosts you can pick up to further diversify gameplay. While I didn't get to see much of the weapons and items, I'm assuming there's probably a good chunk more than we saw, so I'm sure the combat gets more fleshed out as you progress further in runs, as well as get more permanent upgrades from the Arc, which, while not shown here, I believe they showed briefly in a different gameplay trailer. Additionally, there is up to 3-player co-op with 3 different available leapers as of now, so that's a really big plus. This game definitely looks like it works well with co-op since the general gameplay can just be done by 2 or more people simultaneously without any changes. In response to more players, all the game has to do is buff/spawn more enemies to keep difficulty up. Co-op in any game is always a good thing in my opinion, as long as the gameplay model supports it, which this game very much appears to do. I am a little sad that it looks like there's only online co-op, since to me it seems totally possible to also support couch co-op. The camera is zoomed out enough and the different areas are small enough that I don't think it would even be necessary to have split screens. You could just have the camera try to focus on the general center of the players and have a little marker indicating people that go off screen. Again, kinda akin to Wizard of Legend. I know there's more that goes into couch co-op than just, is it logistically possible, and I know local co-op is a dying breed nowadays, so it's not a big deal. It just would be nice to have since online co-op is already a thing, but I'm not complaining. We at least have online co-op. That's much better than no co-op at all. Completely unrelated tangent, moving back to combat, I was also confused if guys like this are supposed to be the boss at the end of all the islands. It's a weird comment probably, but they almost felt like just another more tanky enemy with no introductions or really specific, I don't know how to quantify it, but like bossness, you know? They're kind of just boom, like any other enemy, and then you beat them and move on from them like any other area. When I first saw them, I didn't know they were the last thing to fight until we moved on to the next island set after defeating them. I'm assuming there's some main boss at some interval of completed areas that has more bossness to them, but maybe there could be more indication that you're encountering the final enemy of the island, like a little cinematic of them spawning in, or a dramatic health bar fill, or something. This sounds stupid as I say it, and maybe it's just a me thing, but I feel like the general flow of the game and sense of satisfaction from defeating this mini-boss thing could be upped with more memorable entrances that signify that this is the final enemy of the island, whether or not it's actually classified as a boss or mini-boss. And that's most all my thoughts. Again, short and sweet gameplay trailers are not a ton to go off of, but I am excited to try this game out. It's not the most mind-blowing piece of media ever, but a nice, simply pretty fun game to crack at when you get time, which I think we could use more of. I don't think everything needs to be Game of the Year material. It's nice to have some short and sweet but well-made titles to sort of relax with before going into the Elden Ring DLC for the 50th time. Let me know what y'all's thoughts on the gameplay were, and also with this looser, less edited, more rambling style of video. My upload schedule has been atrocious, so I thought this could be a good way to get your bi-weekly dose of Fro in a less edited format since time has been a more and more lessening resource with my IRL job work piling up. Let me know your thoughts, subscribe if you'd like to hear more, and I will see you, hopefully, right on schedule in the next one. Bye-bye.